having fun at the bear, being on stage, and having a glass of wine with friends afterwards. Being stuck at the bear. What an idea. So welcome, Sandra and Prisoner.
So it was an evening, a Friday evening in 2006. It began as a normal evening. I was a sales representative at that time, and so I was used to travel a lot of kilometers. I was a little bit tired, arrived in my flat in Frankfurt Main, and wanted to call my mother because I was the only one she had, and I had a very deep relationship to her, and it was nice to talk to her every time. So I called her and I noticed, oh, what's going on here? She asked me what the children of some friends are doing, but these friends had no children. And she mixed up other things and she was speaking more slowly. And I didn't know what's going on here and I didn't know what to do. And so I decided to finish that phone call. And then I called a friend of hers because I was in Frankfurt Main, she was in Merseburg, 400 kilometers far away. And this friend was 5 kilometers far away from my mother. And I told her, please, please drive to my mother's home and look what happened. And she said, oh, it's nearly midnight and maybe she had some wine. No, this is not something what you have if you had some wine. I'm quite sure. And so finally I could convince her and she drove to my mother's house. And yeah, 2 hours later I heard what happened. So they needed 1 hour to open the house because nobody had a key, and they have seen through there was a light in the sitting room that she was breaking down, and then yeah, they called the ambulance and she came in a hospital. And so I jumped immediately again in my car. It was in the meantime 2 o'clock in the morning, and I drove to Merseburg. And I mean, it was winter, it was black ice. My contact lenses had milky layer in the meantime on it, and I don't know how I managed it to came to Merseburg without an accident, but I did. And I arrived in the hospital and I have seen my mother lying on a bed on the floor, and it was not like my mother, it was like a lifeless piece of meat. And I talked to the doctor and he said, yes, she had a brain, I don't know the English word, it's in German it's Gehirnblutung. My God. I was shocked, and they brought her to the next hospital, and I drove to the next hospital, and they flight her to Dresden, to the university, and then I drove to the university hospital, and I called friends that I didn't met since I was a child, and they gave me accommodation, and I visited her every evening, and it was getting worse with the health. She was in a coma, and it was a lot of machines and tubes and on her, and it was just terrible. And after 1 week I had to go back because I had to work again, and yeah, then I managed it like this. During the week I was traveling 2,000 kilometers for my job, and at the weekend 1,300 to manage all this. You have an idea that didn't work for a long time. And after, I don't know after how many weeks, but one day I broke down completely. And in that moment, I felt that it was like that some walls were created around me. And from that second on, I could see what's going on outside. I have heard it and I have seen it, but I didn't feel anything. And in my bubble, in my prison, I only felt a deep, deep sadness. And I didn't came out of this for 1 year. I did a lot, and in the meantime, my mother came out of the coma, but became handicapped at the end. That was something what she never wanted to be. And so it was a terrible and not easy time. And by the way, I refused any, I don't know the English word, something that you take pills against that. Yeah, I refused all that, psychopharmaca. And I managed to come through that without anything but doing a lot. And I can tell you, all this is now 18 years ago. And when I had that situation, I have seen me as a prisoner in that deep depression, in that bubble. But after 18 years, I can tell you, it was something else. So life gave me that wall to protect me and to come through that terrible situation. Thank you.